Hey, what's up everybody? Abbas here from Golden Motor. So we got an exciting build video for you today. We put this ToSeven DM01 motor on this bike. So we're going to show you the complete installation of this motor. So this is a nice beefy motor. Feels like a Bafang BBS HD, but this thing has torque sensing. So after the full installation process, we're going to take this out for a ride and tell you our first impression on it. Let's go. So the first step of the build is to take your pedals off. If you intend on changing your pedals for the new build, then you can skip to the second part, which is taking your crank arms. But I am going to change my pedals too. But for the sake of this build, I want to do a complete build. So for taking your pedals off, you need a 50mm wrench, or if you have one, then a pedal wrench. It makes it a little bit easier. Either one works, but the pedal wrench makes it a little bit easier. I'm going to start with the left side of the bike. On this side, for most bikes, you have to turn the pedal clockwise to loosen it. So let's do that. Okay, so next step is to take out the pedals on the drive side, which is the right side of the bike. So on this side, you will turn it counterclockwise. There we go. So step 2 is to take out the crank arms from both the sides. I'm going to start with the drive side. Most bikes will have a bolt like this that you use a 8mm hex to take the bolt out. This one has a little bolt going, so I'm going to use a socket wrench to take it out on both sides. Next step is to take the crank arm out. So for 90-95% of the bikes, you'll use this crank arm extracting tool. And the way it works is you thread it in clockwise. Make sure it goes in all the way without stripping the thread. And then has this arm thing, which you also turn clockwise. And the way it works is that you have to push this against the axle so your crank comes out. And the process is the same on both sides. So you'll turn this until you feel resistance, and then depending on the type of tool, either you can use a wrench to turn over here, or you can use a hex, and then you push. This is the part where you have to put a lot of resistance, and then it becomes easier. So now basically my crank is coming out. So after you have the cranks removed from both the sides, now it is time to take the bottom bracket off. This is a very common type of bottom bracket. It is a threaded bottom bracket, a standard one, and the tool you use for this is tool right here. Basically, it goes into the threads. You put a wrench on there, and then you do the non-drive side first. You turn it counterclockwise on both the sides. You do the non-drives first, and then you also do the same thing on the drive side. Your type of bottom bracket, bikes have different kinds of bottom brackets. So I'm going to put a video on the top so where you can check out what type of bottom bracket you have and what tool you would need. But this is a very common type of bottom bracket. So I'm going to get started with putting this on. Now let's take out the drive side bottom bracket. I actually misspoke. On the non-drive side, you have to loosen it by turning it counterclockwise. On the drive side, you actually have to turn it clockwise. So my apologies for that. So get a nice grip on here and clockwise on the drive side. Before we put the motor in the bottom bracket, give it a nice clean, make sure there's no debris in there. And since we're going to be running a single speed over here, we're going to take the front derailleur out and the front shifter. So I'm going to do that right now. So after you have the bottom bracket clean, it's time to put the motor in. So this is the drive side right here, which is the right side of the bike. This is where your chainring will go. It's just time to install it in. For most bikes, it's going to go in pretty smoothly. Some bikes might take a little bit of maneuvering to do. There we go. So this is in, and this is how your motor is we're going to pull it up right there so we get good ground clearance. I'm going to show you that step now. Before I secured the motor to the down tube, I'm going to finish this side up right here. So time to install the chain ring. So there was a lock ring that was installed on the thread over here, so I just took that off. And now time to install the chain ring. Okay, so it fits in perfectly in that thing. It's not hitting the chainstay, so we don't need any spacers. And then just tighten it with the lock ring. So I'm going to tighten it first with the hand, and then I'll use the tool that comes with the kit. After you have the motor all the way pushed in, the axle should be fully out. You're going to mount it to the down frame. So basically, it's going to mount like this. This mounting plate comes with the kit, and then these two bolts. So basically, it's going to go in like this. You're going to push it all the way in. Use the two bolts right there, mount it in. And then there's another lock ring that comes to secure the mounting plate right here, and you push it against it, torque it really well, and then you use the other side of the tool that it comes with, and then you tighten that on. So I'm going to do that right now and use a 5mm hex to tighten the bolts. And before you tighten it all the way, now pull it up against the down tube, and now tighten it all the way. And now let's put the lock ring on. And now let's secure this with the lock ring. Make sure you torque this lock ring really well. Otherwise, your motor's gonna keep on coming loose and then dangle. So torque it pretty good. After you have the lock ring secured against the motor mount, it comes like an outer lock ring too. This is more plastic, more cosmetic. I don't think it adds too much value in securing the motor mount, but makes it nice and clean. And then you just tighten it with the same tool. So I'm just gonna do that really quickly. Next step is to install the crank arms to the axles. But before I do that, I forgot to mention, depending on your bottom bracket width, you might need these optional 2mm spacer set, just in case your chainring is hitting the chainstay. Depending on the type of bike or the width of your bottom bracket, you might need these, spacer set. You can space it out here or on that side. But this is an option. I didn't need it for this bike. And then if your bottom bracket is a little bit bigger than 68, you might need a little bit longer bolts. So this is the 73mm spacer set, but you can use a little bit longer bolts and then just use more spacers if it's bigger than 73. So basically, I didn't need it on this bike, but the bolt will be longer, then you just space it out. So the mounting plate is not like curved. It's basically straight against the frame. So that's an option if you need it. But now let's install the crank arms. So these come with the kit. Make sure you install the left ones on the left and the right ones on the right. So this is the left side of the bike. It's a square taper. And then you use these two bolts that come with the kit to tighten it in, and a 8mm hex. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Time now to put the pedals back on. So make sure you put the left one on the left and the right on the right. And just in case if you're wondering, the crank arms were also labeled left and right. So I'm going to hand tight this first and then use the pedal wrench or the 15mm wrench, depending what you have, and then tighten it in. The next step is to install the battery in the down tube. So I'm going to be installing the battery cradle right here. and the battery slides on right here. Most bikes will have these 2 bolts for the bottle holder. If you can just use these bolts right here and hook on the cradle. If you don't have that, not to worry. You can use a triple bob. Basically, this mount fixes over here, and then you can install the battery cradle on there. So I'm going to do that right now. But before I do that, let me show you the wires quickly that are coming out of the controller on the motor. So this one is for the main wiring harness, and I'll show you when I connect that. This is for the red and black ones are for the battery. This one is for the speed sensor, and this is for the optional gear sensor that's coming out. So I'll show you this in detail, but I just wanted to let you know before I start that. So I'm going to take these 2 bolts off now. Once you're done installing the cradle, so the next step is basically to put the battery on. It just slides in, boom. And there's a key over here, you just lock it in. So every time you ride, make sure you lock it in. And if you need to take it inside, you can just take it off and take it inside to charge. But I'm going to keep this off for right now. Once I'm done with the whole bike, then I'm going to reinstall it and show you some ride footage. Now we're going to be connecting the main wiring harness to the cable that's coming out of the controller right here. So the main wiring harness has, depending on which one you get, this is a 1x4. So this one is for the throttle right here. These 2 are for the brake sensors, and the green one is for the display. You have an option to get a 1x3, which only has the brake sensors and the display. So if you don't want to hook up a throttle, you can go with the 1x3. I'm going to be hooking up the 1x4. So you want to make sure you line up the 2 arrows before plugging it in. That's important. You don't want to bend the pins. And then now I'm just going to rattle to the front and then show you surgery on the front of the bike, basically. And I'll show you the cleaned up the wires at the end. I'm going to show you all that, but right now I'm just going to connect it. Okay, now onto the front of the bike. So before you start putting stuff on, just map it out like how you're going to like it. The throttle option, I'm going to put a thumb throttle over here. So you have an option to put that on the left side or the right side. I'm going to be putting it on the right side, inside over here. So it's really close to the grips. I already took my grips off because I just cut them off because I'm going to put new grips on. So you just take your grips off. The display that I'm going to use, a T24, it goes in the middle over here. But there's other displays that go on the right side, left side. The pin pad is built into the display. So depending on which kind of display you have, just map it out. My display goes in the middle over here, and the pin pad I'm going to put right here. For brake levers, so your kit comes with these brake levers. Basically, you attach the mechanical brake, and you connect it to over here. And then these also have a e-brake, like an electrical brake, which just goes into the wiring harness right here. And then as soon as you pull the lever, it cuts off the motor. So it's a nice safety mechanism. If you have really good brakes, technically you do not have to change your brake levers. As long as you don't brake and throttle at the same time, you're good to go. But for safety, I recommend it to all my customers. If you want to keep your brake levers, if you got nice ones, there's another option for, and these are optional. These don't come with the kit, but you can get these. These are brake sensors. So what you do is basically connect them to the same plugs that are coming out of the wiring harness. And these will stick on over here, somewhere, like depending on your brake levers. And there's a magnet right next to it. So when you engage your brake lever, it disconnects and it cuts off your motor. So this is another great option if you need it. For my bike, what I'm going to be doing is something very untraditional because my shifter is built into the brake levers. So I need the rear shifter. I do not need the front shifter. So what I'm going to do is just put the left brake lever. I mean, it's not that big of a mismatch. It's okay. It's a little kind of untraditional. Technically, I don't need to put brake levers on, but I want to show you for the video. And plus, this shifter is too big, so I'm going to put this one on right here. I'm going to put the pin pad over here, display over here. So I'm going to start on the right side. So I'm going to start out with loosening this brake lever right here. Just moving this all the way in, just so I can have more space. And then the thumb throttle, I'm gonna put in over here. And the wire is gonna go from the bottom into here. So I don't need to plug it in right now. I'll do that at the end. But make sure you line up the arrows. That's very important. Otherwise, you're going to bend your pins and not good. And there's a bolt right here to tighten it on the handle. And then I usually don't tighten these until the end. Once you have your grip on, and then you move it all the way in. And then, like for this one, I got to make sure my shifter, I'm still able to shift and throttle at the same time. So I'll adjust this later. So my throttle's right here. Now I'm going to put the display on over here. So I'm going to be putting the T24 display in the middle right here. Your display comes with 5 bolts. So 2 bolts over there, 2 bolts over here to tighten it up once it's all set. And then 1 bolt for the pin pad to tighten it in. I'm going to be putting it right here. So let's see if I need any grommets or not, depending on the width of your handlebar. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna need grommets. Just gonna go in right there. Pin pad right here. Okay, and this just bolt it in with the bolts that came with the display and tighten it in. This one I won't title to the end until I have everything figured out over there. All right, time now to change the left-hand brake and then replace it with the electric brake. So if it's a mechanical brake lever, then you have to take the cable out. There we go. So this is out, and now we're gonna put this on the electric brake, and then this will have the electric brake will have mechanical braking power, and then we'll also have electric braking power. And now let's install the electric brake. So we're gonna insert the mechanical cable the same way we took it out. So you line these up right here. There you go. And then basically after this, you just tighten up the bolt with the hex, and then plug the electric cable into the main wiring harness. And now let's install the electric brake. So we installed the mechanical cable the same way we took it off of that one. So first we got to put it in here. There you go. And then line these up so that the cable can come through. There we go. It's in. And now basically you adjust it according to the braking power that you need. And that's it. And then now you plug this into the main wiring harness. All right, guys, the build part is pretty much done. Just got to put the battery on. And then we got to connect all the cables, clean up everything using the zip ties. I got new grips. So basically, yeah, I'm just going to tighten everything, connect the cables, and then we take it out for a ride. Okay, so the bike is nice and clean now. I put heat shrink on it to waterproof it. Put zip ties to clean it up. But I forgot one step in the build, and it's to install the chain. So now I installed the chain, and this bike is ready to go. So I'm going to show you the process, how the finished product looks like, and we're going to take it for a test ride. All right, guys, this build is done. Looks nice and clean. I used zip ties, put these little sleeves on there to make it nice and clean. The motor has a nice clearance, about the same clearance as a Bafang, but the CYC Photon definitely has a better clearance. And the weight's a little bit more than the Photon, but this one's a nice beefy motor. Reminds you a lot about the Bafang BBS HD, but this thing has a torque sensor. All right, one thing I do want to mention to you guys, when I was doing the build, I routed the wire from here. That's a no-no. You know, if you hit a rock when you're riding or something, you do not want to route the wires from the front. You want to route it from the back. So I fixed that. And the build process, I'm going to put that too so nobody messes that up. This thing has a 160 Newton meters of torque and 160 RPM, so that's pretty powerful. And this one's 6 kg. I don't know if I mentioned that, but I'm going to mention it again. All right, let me show you the front of the bike. So the wires are nice and clean. I put this sleeve right here, so you can't even tell this is an e-bike. Not really, but yeah, it's pretty clean. The display is nice and compact. It's got a pin pad right here. Goes all the way up to 5. I'll make a separate video on the display to show you all the ins and outs of the features. I've done a whole series of displays. But yeah, guys, the build is nice and clean. And now it's time to take it out for a ride. All right, guys, I'm in pedal assist 1. Pretty quiet motor. Torque sensor is nice. Pretty quiet, nice quiet motor. All right, I'm in pedal assist 5 now. I'm in the 6th gear. This is the 8-speed. I'm gonna show you just straight throttle. So this one is rated at 1,000 watts, but you can go up to 1,500 watts. It's about the same power as the Bafang BBS HD, but with a torque sensor. So I'm gonna show you straight throttle. And then you guys can judge the sound and the speed on this. All right, let's go. Yeah, definitely it's got the power of the BBS HD on here. It just first impression when you guys put this on, it feels like the Bafang and CYC had a baby. So I'm gonna talk about the torque sensor now. The torque sensor on this, honestly, when we got it first, the demo unit, it was not up to par. But now with the firmware update they have done, it's much more responsive. Honestly, like it's not as good as the CYC one, but it's still very good. So the torque sensor is really good. So as far as the reliability on this motor, it's still a question mark. I mean, it's a nice beefy motor. They used to work for, this motor used to be associated with Tongsheng. They worked with Bafang engineers before. So I'm assuming it's gonna be good, but again, can't claim it right now. It's January 2024 right now. So as of right now, the reliability is question mark, but it feels really nice. So just in case if you're wondering what's the difference between torque sensor and cadence sensor is basically once the pedal starts moving, the pedal assist is going to kick on at a steady rate, depending on what you set on your pedal assist level. Torque sensor, like on this bike and the CYC, is basically if you push down hard on the pedal, the motor is going to detect that you need more help, so it's going to give you more power. But this one is much more intuitive. It feels like you have a bionic leg. So if you're going uphill and you're pedaling harder, it's going to give you more assist. So in this motor, you can just do throttle only, no pedaling. Depending how much speed you want, you adjust the pedal assist level. And then if you want torque sensing pedal assist, which this bike has. All right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed the video. This is a nice motor in our opinion. So as Golden Motor, we're gonna start carrying this motor to sell. So if you're interested in getting one, I'll put it in the link in the description below. And that's it for this video. We'll see you guys later.